I think one of the biggest things is you mentioned you talk to people doing different things. It's one thing to connect with people doing your exact same job, but it's another thing, and I think an opportunity to really grow when you start connecting with people that, like you mentioned, startups or nonprofits or things you maybe in your wildest dreams might never work for or work with. But it's one of those things where I think it's important because I think you see the world and see people's experiences from a different lens.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that's also another tip for networking. Network with very diverse set of individuals. Go to very very diverse conferences if that's the way you network. Meetups, very very diverse. So you may be a tech person. Can you go to a say booklet fest, a podcast fest? Something very very different because one, it enables learning. Two, it enables you to meet very different kinds of people, and it is the diversity in the network that really brings out opportunities and your growth.
Join me, Jeremy Swick, on Into the Unknown, a podcast that delves into the personal journeys, stories, and experiences of individuals across diverse professions. As a historian by trade, I firmly believe that our personal histories shape our present and offer valuable insights into our paths ahead. With that being said, let's get into it. On this episode of Into the Unknown, I am joined with a very special guest, Neeraja Ganesh. How are you doing today?
Very well, thank you. And I'm so glad we finally managed to get a slot which worked for both of us.
Absolutely. When you talk to people all over the world, it gets a little difficult. Even last night, or I guess this morning for you, we were talking about timing and all that, but I'm glad we made it work.
Absolutely fantastic. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Speaking of that, where are you coming in from right now?
So I'm in India, in a city called as Bangalore, which is in the south part of India.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time, and I'm just excited.
Same here. I mean, I've caught a few of the episodes on your show earlier, and it's been a very interesting mix of people that you find for your show.
I appreciate it. It's one of those things I believe that everyone has a story to share, and sometimes people don't think their story is important, but I hope to give people that platform.
Very true, very true. It took me some time, to really understand why stories are so important. So, going back many years ago, I went to a conference and there was this lady who introduced herself as a storyteller and a story collector more than a storyteller. So, she collects stories and then she used to put it up on a website. And I thought, I mean, what use is it of? Like, who will go and read these stories of regular people like you and I? She is so I just couldn't understand it. But now I understand that every that small story has some meaning, has some moral, has some lesson. And in fact, I've picked up some of her stories in my sessions, when I narrated to people.
I love it. I love it. I always like to kick out the show and talk about the importance of networking. How do we know each other?
Okay. So I'm going to backtrack. All right. So the first point is Stefana Johnson. I I was on her podcast. And what I do when I get onto people's podcasts is I actually listen to some of the episodes so that I get a flavor of what they do. And you were on her podcast. And then I said, the other thing that I do is also like to connect with people who do interesting things. And I connected with you. But how did I know Stefana? So I'll go a little behind, because I want to explain networking to people via this story. So how do I know Stefana is I am on a platform called as Leadership Global that's run by Linda Fisk. That's a platform for women leaders globally. Now, why did I get onto that platform and how did I know Linda? That was because I was on another podcast that was hosted by Annie Gibbons, and Linda was on that. Um, so backtracking this way, the very first connect was when I was speaking at a conference, an international conference, but of course it was during COVID and it was all virtual. So what I do when I go to these conferences, virtual or in person, is I try and get to know the speakers. I try and get to know some of the attendees. I connect with them on social media, definitely on LinkedIn because it's a professional networking platform, and that enables me to know what they are doing, and if I can be of some value to them, that's the essence of networking. People get it so wrong. Networking is about asking people. No, It's about giving something to the person that you're connected with. So I see how I could be of some use. And I may refer some guests to your podcast. I may refer you to someone else's podcast. You know, the simplest thing that I can do for you. And that's the definition of networking. So that's how we got connected.
I appreciate you said that. I think it's so important because I would agree people miss the I think key principles of networking, but also even conferences like that. Sometimes I see people and it's I think it's a comfort level as well. They're trying to maybe they just stay with their own little group they came with. Where me when I go to networking events, I talk to everyone and anyone and oh, you're not even part of the conference, but hey, let's talk or I saw you at Starbucks or this that and the other and I think you never really know where those connections can lie and being I'm in the same group same coach similar coaching group with Stefana and I was a guest on her podcast, she was a guest on my podcast, and we still talk quite a bit. And I think that the other thing is once you network with someone and once maybe you collaborate on something, I always encourage people to keep in contact because then it feels like a mutualistic relationship. It's not just, oh hey, I used you for my episode, now see you never or see you when I need something again.
That was a very important point. The first connect may be easier. Some people find even that difficult, but maybe that's easier. But keeping in touch is the most difficult part. People all ask, "Oh, how do I mean? What kind of conversations can I have with someone that I met only once?" But I say, if you were able to genuinely connect and understand that person's passion, interest, challenges, you can definitely have a follow up after that.
I couldn't agree more. So I want to know a little bit more about you, that comic book issue number one, that origin story. Who are you?
Okay, so Neeraja Ganesh. Um, Always been in India. So I was born in a place in Kerala, which is much south of India, and then went for my first 12 years of my education to another city called as Indore, which is in Madhya Pradesh, the center of India. And then after that, I've been here. My father had got transferred to Bangalore, and since then I've been here. So that's the way I was born and I got educated. I actually grew up to be a very meek, timid, shy girl. I come from a conservative family, and I'm an only child. So I really didn't talk much. People don't believe that now, but in those days, I went to school, didn't have friends. In fact, for the first 10 years of my career, I didn't even say hi to the person who used to sit next to me. I was that shy. So I just did my work. I was a software engineer. I studied computers and software. So I did my job. I did that well, went home. And then there was a moment that came in my life where the organization trusted me and gave me a leadership role to manage a team of 10 people. That's when I realized that as a leader, I can't just keep quiet. I have responsibilities. I need to speak for my team. I need to fight it out with customers. I need to, have conversations with stakeholders. I have to challenge some of the practices in the organization. And I did that. And thankfully, it was welcomed. People heard me. And because of some of the suggestions that I made, some good changes were brought in, which not only helped me and my team, but the entire organization, which is when I realized that I must do more of this. And then I've never stopped talking. And 25 years of a corporate life in technology. And then I quit in 2017 and decided to focus on gender diversity. I was always passionate about helping women with their careers. So I looked out for opportunities to mentor, coach women, and also to conduct some leadership programs for them. So that's been my space for the last 7 8 years, where I may go on a conference and give a talk so that it has the right impact. I may conduct a 1 hour workshop. I may conduct a year-long leadership journey. I may write articles. I may appear on podcasts like this, but everything is towards that one purpose, which is to create a positive mindset shift with every interaction that I have with people.
What prompted you to leave? You said you were in your career for 25 years. What prompted you to make that decision?
So it was not a very intentional one, I'll be very honest. When you're growing in your career, you need all the support system that you can have, because I'm married, I have a child. Today she's 23, but I'm saying when I was growing in my career, she was young, smaller, and she was also growing up. I had my parents, I had my in laws. all of them supported me in my career journey, right? So in India, we do have a very close bonding with family. So I lived with my in-laws. My parents were in the same city. My husband used to work from home, so he was available more for any kind of help that I needed. I also brought up my daughter to be very responsible. In fact, I sometimes tell people I think I was a monster mom because I made her do a lot of work at home. But you need all of this support system to enable you to do what you want to do. And it helps them also grow. My daughter has grown up to be a very independent, responsible girl. She's 23 now. And that year in 2017, this entire support system came crumbling down. So my mother had to undergo a surgery, and I thought I needed to be there for her. As she recovered, my husband fell very ill, so I stayed back at home. I'd taken some time off, but it just continued because one after the other, people, needed some assistance at home. My father-in-law, he fell ill, then he passed away. So the 6 weeks of break that I had taken became 3 months. And it only convinced me that I want a role which wouldn't make me travel as much as I was doing. And this is pre-COVID, so people didn't think we could do conversations like this. They felt that you have to show up in front of your team, in front of your stakeholders. So I was trying to negotiate a role without travel, but it didn't come my way. And I had made up my mind in those 3 months that if such a role didn't come, then I will leave. So I left without a job. But one other thing that I did in those 3 months was while I was caring for people at home, I used to step out every day for a couple of hours. And I used to meet people with whom I had connected, say, through conferences on LinkedIn and all of that, just to explore if I could collaborate with them. These were people who were doing very interesting things, very different things. So I said, let me find out how they started up and if there's any way to collaborate. And I used to volunteer at a few places, some startups, some not for profits. So the confidence that gave me was that there's enough to do. I'm not going to get bugged and bored of no work. Whether I can make money or not is a secondary thing. We'll have to figure that out. But then, with 25 years of a corporate career, you do have good savings. People should save money, right? So you can take that risk. So that's how I left. And then I figured my way out to say, okay, networks help. In addition to networks, your brand presence helps. So you have to invest on building your brand. So these two put together brought me tons of opportunities, and also I found myself making money. So yeah, it was a good mix of doing impact work at the same time being able to also manage my finances.
Ninja, I appreciate you said that. I think one of the biggest things is you mentioned you talk to people doing different things. It's one thing to connect with people doing your exact same job, but it's another thing, and I think an opportunity to really grow when you start connecting with people that, like you mentioned, startups or nonprofits or things you maybe in your wildest dreams might never work for or work with. But it's one of those things where I think it's important because I think you see the world and see people's experiences from a different lens.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that's also another tip for networking. Network with very diverse set of individuals. Go to very very diverse conferences if that's the way you network. Meetups, very very diverse. So you may be a tech person. Can you go to a say booklet fest, a podcast fest? Something very very different because one, it enables learning. Two, it enables you to meet very different kinds of people, and it is the diversity in the network that really brings out opportunities and your growth.
I couldn't agree more. So once you have left your job, what was those first kind of moments like when you decided to kind of really pivot? Obviously, you had mentioned you had things going on at home, but also once you started to really jump in, what was that experience like?
So I have to tell you, 25 years of corporate, and I've worked in the big organization. So there's always a very structured way of working. The processes are established, and this is how you do things. You don't question things. Largely, people won't question or suggest something very different. If there's a project plan, then you stick to the project plan and you deliver outcomes as per that. The first thing which hit me when I went and worked at the startup was what I planned today, tomorrow it's no longer there. It's a completely different thing. Your immediate manager is saying, no, 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 yesterday's whatever, let's throw it out. We'll think very different today. And for me to adjust to that that kind of change was very, very difficult. So it took me a while to embrace that, and not everybody is able to embrace it. I have to say that. There have been others who have tried this. They couldn't, fit in, and they've gone back to, those kinds of corporate jobs, the big monolithic organizations. I think as a person, I'm quite flexible, adaptable. So that's why it helped me. While there was a lot of discomfort, I said, I'll stay put. I'll stay put. And in a few months, I kind of, got used to this kind of working. The second thing which hit me was I had to really unlearn, because this, for example, a simple thing as social media, right? It is very important. Today, it is important to every organization, but at that point in time, it was very important to the startup and this not for profit that I was heading. And I had never used social media. I was on LinkedIn, but I was just there. I would never write anything on LinkedIn, but I had to do that. So I had to get out of my comfort zone, and I had to start writing posts. And there was this young girl, maybe half my age, who was trying to teach me how to write posts, the hashtags, and all of that. And then she told me, I don't think you'll get it. And she walked away. So that's the other thing, you'll have people half your age come and tell you things, and you should swallow your ego and be willing to learn from them, which I did. So today, some people call me an influencer on LinkedIn, but that's the thing. You have to unlearn and you have to relearn, swallow your ego. So what if I was one of the big bosses in the corporate with a nice small cubicle? I had people to help me out, print my documents. Here I had to go and print my own documents. So when you want to transition, you have to remember that you're leaving your past behind, and you have to kind of get used to the new ways of working. Only then you grow from there.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I want to go back. And I always emphasize the you mentioned brand presence. I would call that, if you're looking old school, if you will, it's your reputation, it's your online reputation, it's who you are, or who you at least portray online. And I always encourage people just be authentic with that. I mean, we were talking before the show. You see all the stuff behind me. It's all my collectibles, my bobbleheads, and my. I think I got some shoes back there now that I'm looking, and it's one of those things where I think showing that authentic self. And of course, we're different than we are on Facebook, than we are on Instagram, than we are on TikTok, than even on LinkedIn. But I think it's showing kind of who you are, because if people don't want to work with who you are, maybe they're not the right fit for you, you know?
That's true. That's true. And that is where it becomes easy. If you are going to pretend to be somebody else because you feel that that somebody else is who will attract opportunities, then it is pressure. Because you have to always be remembering who I'm supposed to be, how am I supposed to behave, how should I talk, what should I talk. And then there is that additional pressure. But if you are just yourself, your authentic self, then that pressure is taken away. So I'm speaking to Jeremy now, and that's exactly what I'm going to write, and that's how I'm going to present myself wherever I am. And you said it right. Those who wish to engage with you will engage with you, and that's the audience that you need, and that's good enough for you.
I couldn't agree more. On everyone's journey, you can go east, you can go west, you make a decision not really knowing the outcome. Can you give me an example of that in your life?
um so I'm thinking, which one shall I speak about? Maybe I can talk about this very point in life where I decided to quit without a job. Didn't know what I was going to do. And the first thing that came my way was to head the not for profit foundation. It was a new not for profit foundation, so I had to actually establish it. I told you my story about unlearning and learning new things. For 18 months, I built the organization, I built partnerships, I built a community, and I must have conducted about 100 plus events for the community. Not at all something that I've done in the past 25 years, but I managed to pull it off. And I quit after 18 months. And then I went into the academic institutions, because one of the realizations was, why is it that people should work for 10 years, 15 years, and then realize I should have known this much before? Why is it that we are not able to catch them young and impart this? So I thought I must do something, in the space of education. So I went and did that. In 1 year, I worked at a 100-year-old educational trust here. It was to build the industry academia connect. Because everybody says today's youth are unemployable. But whose fault is it? When the youth are going to the colleges to study, the colleges are offering some kind of an education. If that is not relevant to the industry, then it's not the youth's fault. So then I said we should bring the industry experts, review the college curricula, and tell us what is not okay, what is to be put in, something new has to be brought in. Now, this was a fantastic role, but I did it in 2020, the year when nobody wanted to even think of anything other than their own businesses. So I tried my best. I got a few collaborations going, but I knew that it's not going to happen as I was expecting it to. So I moved out from that. So the point is, I kept building. So I didn't know what I was going to do. Then I went to head a not-for-profit. Then I went and headed, this academic institution, this particular role. Then I came out of that, and then I picked up some consulting gigs at different kinds of organizations. Uh, but one thing was certain: I knew my why. Why was I doing all these things? It was to bring about a positive mindset shift with every interaction that I have. That's my tagline on LinkedIn. So anything that helps that, I would do. Whether it's writing an article, whether it's speaking, whether it is picking up a particular project or running a training program, if it served that why, then I would do that. And today, people who see me newly, like for example, you didn't know this past. So when you may have looked at me and heard me at one of the podcasts or something, you'd have said, wow, you know how did she do that? But it's a journey. So I encourage people to get onto the journey. Nothing happens overnight. Brand building also is a process, and you have to continuously build your brand. It's not that I have arrived and then I forget it. Now people will remember me. No, it's such a competitive world out there that they'll forget you if you don't show up again. And that is why I make this, like for example, when you invited me, I said definitely I'll make time for this because it is important. It does create impact, but it is also helping my brand presence. So that's the journey which I think has come out very beautifully.
I appreciate you said that. I think so much of it is those moments, even though it maybe not. I always look, you can look back and you're like, why did I take this job or why did I do this? And then you think back and it's almost like building blocks from each step you pivot. I don't ever call it failing. I mean, if you're going to fail, you're going to fail forward. You're going to learn from that experience. You're going to learn from what you like, what you don't like, and what pieces you can take to kind of keep building.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And, going off that as well, I think it's one of those things of being selfish but also selfless. Of course it's great to be on podcasts because it helps share your brand, it helps share your story, but it also helps people like me as well. And so I think you can have that mix, and I think you can have both without it feeling like not authentic, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So as I said, I do many, many things. For example, a podcast presence like this. You rightly said it creates an impact. Even if one of our listeners is able to take one action from this and implement it, it has done its job. We don't need thousands to listen because it's always a ripple effect. That person will go ahead and do something with his or her life, which will impact many others. Um, and of course, it's my brand presence which is enhanced. Somebody who listened to me may invite me further for a training program or something else. So it gives me also some work after this. So I think all of us need to first figure out in our list of priorities how much of what we want to do. So mine is a mixed bag, right? The 25 years of corporate, I did only one job. But today that has also changed. People, I know my own daughter, while she has a day job, she also likes to do a lot of training. So she does that also. She does one-on-one mentoring coaching also. She also comes and, speaks at conferences. That's the generation of today. We didn't know that. We said, okay, that's one job and that's one job that we need to do. But when you arrive at a juncture like this, when you are happy to be doing three or four things, one of them will pay you good money, one will not pay you anything, and there'll be one which will be kind of iffy. But you need to understand how much of your time you want to put into each, depending on the state of life, the stage of life that you are in. So if you really want to make a lot of money, then you do 90%, pay jobs which pay you a lot, and 10% of not for profit or just brand building efforts. If you think no, you've arrived, you've got a good decent investment bank balance, and hence you can do 50% of the paid jobs and another 50 of the not paid. But that is important for you to realize for yourself. It's going to be very different for each person. Jeremy may have a very different kitty. Neerja has a very different kitty, and Stefana will have a very different kitty. So don't start looking at, oh my God, look at the person, look at her and him. That is our problem, right? We don't know our own why. Most times people don't know their why. They're trying to chase somebody else's why.
I couldn't agree more. And I think something I learned, so I'm a historian by trade. I have 2 degrees in history. I've worked at museums all over the country. And one of those things is I think I always had wanted more. So I just started doing more, whether it's purposely or not purposely. Started my business to afford my love of history and then kind of continue to grow from there. But I think so many of those tools and discovering your why, and I tell people also when they're looking for their why or discovering, it's okay for that why to change over time. It's going to change. Your priority this year might be different next year, whether it's due to family, whether it's due to an increase in income or a decrease in income, or just shifting passions and interests.
True. You're very right. Priorities change over a period of time. Normally, you can say my priority for a year to 18 months, probably, but there could be times when it changes in 6 months because of circumstances that you are put in. So, but keep an eye on priorities always. That's very very important. Your own priorities, not because somebody else is doing something.
Absolutely. I always encourage people to kind of put those blinders on when you're working. There's going to be different seasons. Sometimes you're going to be really, pushing it. You're going to be going all in. And there's other times where you might be able to relax a little more. And so I'll just tell people like keeping up, trying to keep up with others. You don't know what they're doing. You don't know what's going on. I mean, truthfully, again, I guess somewhat of a downside of branding, people can look like they're winning and doing very well. And either financially miserable or internally miserable, and it still doesn't show. So I just encourage people to kind of stick to their journey and their path.
Absolutely, very 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 right. How aligned we are in our thoughts, Jenny.
It's great. I appreciate it. It's everything you're saying. I'm shaking my head because I agree, and it's one of those things where I think also with doing podcasting and things like that. Even shout out to Stefana. She's a great human being. I love talking with her, and I think a lot of times those people kind of are in your life and you're able to connect with them, and then so when people either they recommend or they talk to or they interact with, it kind of builds that, I'd say, extra level of trust without really even doing anything. Even when we first got connected, I had watched your episode and I was like, oh, she seems like a really interesting person, and Stefana's great. And so it's just, I always appreciate that aspect of networking as well.
Yes, that's right. And that's how it kind of multiplies, and we will probably look out for each other from now on to say, okay, this may be of interest to Jeremy and you may do the same for me. And it goes on from there. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. So title of the podcast, Into the Unknown. What are you working on right now?
Okay, so there are two big things for me for this year. One is I launched my own leadership development program for women called as Trailblazers. So all these years, I used to run a lot of programs. It was always customized based on the client's requirements. I continue to do that. I'm not going to stop that. But I've come to this juncture where I've felt that for women, there are only 5 or 6 things that they need. You don't need to tell them 100 things. And it's largely in the mind, their mindsets. Today, I think skills can be picked up very easily. There is no dearth of material, there's no dearth of AI available over there, and you can pick up skills. But a lot is there in our minds in terms of the willpower to do certain things. And that's what my program focuses on, starting from the power of purpose to many other things. So I launched it. I said, okay, this year this is Neerja's signature program called as Trailblazers for Women, and that's something that I have launched, and I would love for people to kind of engage with me, get to know more about it, and see if they would like in their own organizations embrace this program. The second is so far till 2024, largely my presence has been in India. So clientele has been in India, coaching has been in India, podcasts have been in India, and this year, very intentionally, I want to go global. I want to really appear on global stages, and look at global clients, whether it's one-on coaching or facilitation. And that's also a reason why I'm trying to become part of platforms like Leadership Global, and then connect with Linda and Jeremy and Stefana and all of that. So yeah, I would love to explore global status this year.
People want to find you and learn more about what you do. Where can they find you?
Easiest way is LinkedIn. My website is still work in progress, so LinkedIn is the way place to find me, and I'm always on LinkedIn. So you will very very quickly get a response if you put in a message to me, and we can engage through that.
Well, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today. It was really enjoyable to get to know you even more.
Same here, and I look forward to having a conversation every few weeks, not for the podcast but in general.
We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
That was another fun episode of Into the Unknown. I truly appreciate you taking the time to listen. And if it provides you any value or entertainment, I would love if you shared it with others, liked, subscribed, and really just help the podcast grow. Again, tell a friend, tell a foe, just anyone who might enjoy hearing some stories of people's own journeys and what got them to where they are today. Till next time.